live video broadcast of our discussion about emotional intelligence and talking about some of the 15 competencies of the MHS model, also known as the Bar-On model. I'd like to send out a big welcome to you, and welcome to my friend and colleague, Mr. Kim Cairns, here sitting beside me on the couch. It's rare that we get to have this conversation when we're both in the same room together. So here we are at our beautiful Vancouver office, and we're chatting about social responsibility today. So welcome, Kim.
Well, thanks, Dave. Yeah, it is. It's great to be in the same space. Usually we're in different locales, and thanks to everybody for joining us today too.
We had the opportunity to work with a wonderful senior leadership team yesterday from a great company here in Vancouver, and so we thought we'd do the broadcast here live today before heading off to our next destination, which we'll do this afternoon. And so social responsibility is part of the interpersonal composite area of the 15 subscales or factors or competencies of the MHS model, based on the original work of Dr. Reuven Bar-On. And social responsibility is one of those wonderful cornerstones of leadership, and it's got so many applications, and I think you've got some really great ways of thinking about social responsibility, Kim, that I'd love to talk about. And so would you like to start us off and share some of your thoughts on social responsibility?
Well, we were just talking this morning over coffee about the concept of social responsibility. And I guess for me, I take a look at it as really it's a recognition that I'm part of a bigger picture, that I have needs as an individual. I have things that I want to achieve and do on my own. But as I'm doing that, I'm still part of a larger picture. And I think it's so important to keep that in mind. I'm obviously concerned about my nuclear family that's in tight with me, my circle of friends, but there's a level of concern about the community I live in too, and there's a recognition that there's a responsibility for me to contribute to that community, to not just be taking from that community.
Right.
So that ends up driving small choices that I make every day.
Yes.
And those include choices of seeing a bit of litter on the street. It's on my street,
right.
And so picking that up and finding a garbage for it. It's also engaging with clerks at the grocery store or at the coffee shop.
Well, I love that interaction this morning, Kim. We went to the local coffee shop here, and it was just about engaging people. You know. That we don't know the guy behind the counter, but friendly enough guy, and Kim, as he usually does, engages him in conversation, and I could hear the laughter and some, you know, just over some small little things, and it's that kind of responsibility. As a social being. We're social beings. We live in a social world. We can't help but be part of this larger whole. And I was having this conversation with my brother-in-law, Barry, the other day about rights and responsibilities. You know, there's a lot of talk about people, you know, demanding their rights. And what we often don't talk about is the responsibility. And here is built right into our model of EQ, this concept of social responsibility. We have a responsibility to contribute to the social fabric, if you will, to the larger society. And if all we want is our rights and with no responsibilities, who's going to be, who's going to be picking up that random piece of paper? Who's going to be, brightening up somebody's day? Who is in the service industry? Who is standing behind a counter and having to serve people? It's about noticing that we're part of a larger whole. And I think that's part of the point that you were making, Kim, earlier. It is, what is my responsibility, given I'm a member of the human race?
Well, and Dave, I think we had a great example recently in our country with our election. You know, we have this great right to be able to live in a democracy and participate in that democracy, but not always is our participation all that strong. And so I was really heartened to see that we had 4 million more voters show up this year for the federal election than had shown up in 2011. Right. So there, to me, is a prime example of social responsibility. It's I get to live in a democracy. And with that comes some responsibilities of inquiring about how does the election process work? Who am I really interested in? Whose values align with mine? And I have the responsibility to go to that polling station and line up for a while and cast my ballot. So the election is a prime example of social responsibility, that engagement in the process, and not just for my own needs, but for the greater good of the country in that context.
Absolutely. And it was amazing to see, and it made me really proud of our country, the fact that in our participatory democracy, we have such a large participation, people actually taking their responsibility seriously as voters and participants in choosing who are going to be our decision makers, and who's going to be again looking after the rest of the society. So that's one aspect. That, you know, the other, and I talk about this in some of our courses, Kim, is the idea that many of our EQ competencies have this continuum, which is from me to others, from me to we, as one of the popular campaign goes. And so, you know, this social responsibility is about me in relation to others, and how I kind of shift my focus and shift my thinking to what can I do for others? How can others benefit from my being on this planet? And there's this funny contradiction that when we are acting in socially responsible ways, that is thinking of others and giving to others, we benefit. I mean, it's not necessarily the goal that, you know, I'm going to do good because it's going to be good for me, but it's a nice side benefit, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we all end up with that nice warm feeling inside when we engage with somebody and contribute to their life in that moment.
Yes.
In whatever way we do that. And I think, you know, we were decades, and has been a main driver with the Calgary YMCA in terms of its development. And I look at Jim as just a great walking example of a corporate kind of social responsibility component. Somebody that's been very successful in his business life and has devoted just about as much energy to contributing to the community in terms of development for programs and facilities for the community at large. So there's a bigger picture kind of look. And I think it's just about thinking about not thinking of either or. I mean, I like your slider notion. It is constant. That slider is constantly in movement. So as we're interacting with the world, I'm thinking about what my needs are in the moment, but I'm also very aware of being curious about what other people's needs are and what their perspective is in that situation, and engaging them in dialogue.
Yeah, we have those great role models who are really generous in their giving socially, and like Jim Gray and many others. And it's it's thinking about, okay, so what can I do? How am I going to demonstrate social responsibility? Because obviously, you know, we don't all have the same means or resources at our disposal to give the way some people can, but you know, that doesn't mean that we can't give. And I love your pebble in the pond model. So I'm going to invite you to share the pebble in the pond model. I'd like to talk about it. So because it's so interesting. Every time we talk about it, I come to a deeper level of understanding of social responsibility.
Well, I think it's just when I think about it, Dave, it's you know, we do throw a pebble in the pond. We watch the ripples go out from that. So I always have that picture in my mind when I'm seeing, you know, perhaps an elderly person carrying a couple of grocery bags, having to make it across a crosswalk, and it's a busy street. And I'm on my way to do something else, but I notice that and make an inquiry about if I can help that person get across the street with the bags. Because I know at the rate that that person's moving, there's a lot of anxiety about that traffic. There's anxiety about holding up that traffic. There's anxiety about being able to make it across the crosswalk with both those.
You don't just grab the bags.
Yeah. It's about coming up and saying, "Can I give you a hand? I see you're carrying a heavy load there, and I know there's a lot of traffic here. I'm happy to help you across the road."
Yeah.
So it's about those choices that we make in those little moments in life that have huge impact. You've just made somebody's day a little bit easier.
Yes.
And you've had a great exchange with somebody. You've had a human interaction.
Yes. Yeah, and we always engage servers in restaurants when Kim and I are traveling on business and we're out for dinner. But you know, wasn't it interesting, Kim, when we did that in cultures where that was not necessarily the norm? And it was amazing to see the change come over people when we engaged them, and it was you could see them light up, right? They just lit up when we actually said, you know, how are you doing? And just asked them, you know, have you lived here all your life? You know, how's business been lately? Just anything, or made some joke about, I don't know, something on the menu, or and it was so interesting how both they lit up, and then in places where we had to sort of stay and set up base camp, how those people really, you know, were drawn to interacting with us, and they'd see us coming and they want to be there. And it's just so interesting when you reach out, what you get back. You never know what you're going to get back. And sometimes nothing, sometimes just a dirty look when you try to engage someone or help someone, or just sort of thinking outside yourself and thinking, you know, what might brighten this person's day. And I think that it's just such an interesting thing to put onto the radar screen of people who maybe don't necessarily think that way, or again, are more concerned about their rights than their responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. And I think it is about, again, those small choices. I talk to people a lot about social responsibility from an EI perspective during debriefs and during coaching and during courses. And often people just think about, oh, I don't recycle as much as I should. There's always this kind of, I'm not contributing to my community enough. I'm not on enough committees. I'm not engaged enough. And my inquiry always is, well, what smaller things could you be doing? What smaller things could you be doing every day that are going to have positive impact on your, you know, nuclear situation, your street, your neighborhood, your town, your city? And again, so that's that ripple effect outwards. And I think those small decisions are, you may not recycle everything, but you may decide to pick up a to-go cup that lasts. And the next time you go for a coffee, you're not taking out a plastic lid and a paper cup that ends up in the landfill. So there's a small step right there that has actually a lot of impact on what's going to unfold in the world. So again, it's about keeping that perspective in mind, is what choice am I making in this moment, and what kind of implications does it have on a broader scale?
Right.
And I think that can be a good guide in every interaction.
People say I don't have time for social responsibility. Well, actually, social responsibility is more a way of thinking than it is actually, you know, going down to volunteer at a nonprofit organization, or some of those you know, larger activities that we think of in association with social responsibility. You don't have to be an environmental crusader. You don't have to join Greenpeace. It's just how can others benefit from what I have? And you know, this is the essence of leadership right there. Is how can others benefit from what I have? And so managers tell us, you know, they don't have time for social responsibility. Well, actually, in the workplace, part of your job is social responsibility. It is looking to those people that report to you, those colleagues that have more work than they should have on their desk, and it's like, how can I help? How can I support you? How can I, help you with access to resources, with my effort, my expertise, my knowledge? What can I do? And as we often talk about that question, what can I do? Sometimes it's about making a specific offer and saying, how about I take, 3 or 4 of those files off your desk? Some specific offer that people can say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Instead of saying, what can I do, expecting that others are going to solve the problem of your social responsibility for you, because maybe they're just too stressed to be able to figure that out. Or life is just too heavy for them in that moment to be able to say, here's what you can do. So, when you can think for yourself about what to do and make the offer, that sometimes goes better.
Absolutely, and I think that it's even as simple as seeing something that needs to be done, and rather than my focus going to, why hasn't that been done? Who's in charge of that? Why hasn't that happened? And just stepping in and saying, well, I could actually do that. I have 10 minutes to overturn garbage, or I could, I could adjust that rug at the entrance door because it's wet and rainy outside, and obviously janitorial is looking after something else in this moment. So I can easily bend down and do that. Rather than thinking, this is a big problem, I need to find out the root cause of it. It's about mentoring those actions on a regular basis that are demonstrating that I'm contributing to that community in that office building or in that work context.
You just reminded me, Kim, of I have a friend and colleague, David Guthrow, who a very clever, creative guy, and he was doing a workshop, a leadership workshop, and he had little buttons made, and the buttons, on the button, it said, someone should, and he had one of those circles with the cross over someone should, to try to emphasize the idea that it's not about waiting for someone to take action to fix the things that are a problem for you. It's about you taking responsibility to take care of it. Again, it's not waiting for someone. It's about, what can I do? Again, that's part of our definition of leadership. It's about choosing, making the choice to be part of the solution. And with respect to social responsibility, it's making the choice to support others, do something that's going to benefit people, someone other than me.
Mm-hmm.
It gets me out of me. So the focus is not on what do I need to do for me. The focus is on what do I need to do for others, and there's that contradiction. That again, when we shift that focus to others, we get out of ourselves, and we get that warm feeling that you mentioned. But it's not the warm feeling of having a new toy of some kind, right? I mean, when I got my latest phone, yes, I had that warm feeling, as I love technology. But it's not the same warm feeling as being able to do something for someone else. And we have lots of people much smarter than me who have written books about this idea that is at a higher level, doing something for someone else. That kind of authentic happiness that Martin Seligman talks about, that kind of a genuine sense of accomplishment, of achievement, when we're supporting the growth and development of others.
And it's just, more depth of engagement is a natural part of this notion of social responsibility.
Yes, yes.
In that stepping out from myself, I'm taking the time to look at the situation or the person in a different perspective.
Yes.
And so it's giant learning every time.
Yes.
And so it's that sense of engagement, and I've learned something new in that little situation that I'm going to be able to apply in other parts of my life too.
And speaking of depths of engagement and depths of fulfillment, it's also interesting that many people solve their so-called midlife crisis by getting involved in social responsibility. So people who have, and in some cases, big jobs, they've achieved a great deal of material success, and then they find that now they've got all the toys and all the technology and all the houses and cars and all the things that one can purchase with financial resources, that if life still doesn't quite have that same amount of meaning, they turn their attention to social responsibility, and that's where the fulfillment comes from that they've been looking for all along, but they were looking in the wrong places. And I think that's part of what Martin Seligman is talking about in his book, Authentic Happiness.
And I think, Dave, too, you know, in talking with people that have young children who have gone through the EQI assessment, I've talked to a number of people that are dismayed by their social responsibility score. And then we end up having a dialogue around, why is that the case? Well, when I was younger, I was more involved. And now since I've had kids, I just don't have that depth of involvement in my community. Right. And invariably I'll say, and so how are things going with raising your kids? Oh, really good. I mean, it's just, you know, it's so busy, but it's fulfilling. I said, well, there's social responsibility right there. Your priorities at this point in your life are raising your kids, and that's part of social responsibility. Creating good citizens, right? Absolutely. That have all the skills and capacities to be able to deal with a complex, changing world. Yes. And so it's about shifting that thinking about what social responsibility is as an environmental thing or a donation thing, or it's social responsibility can run across every moment in our lives if we're making those choices in those little moments.
Yes. Yeah, and while, you know, some of the indicators on the inventory that we use, the emotional quotient inventory, are related to environmental concerns, it's not restricted to environmental concerns. That social responsibility, again, it's not about thinking about giving back to a specific cause or to a specific activity. Again, I like to think of it as a way of thinking that's just getting the focus, getting the attention off of me for a change. And again, as we mentioned, this wider context, the fact that we live on this planet, that we have to care for it together, and you mentioned something earlier, Kim, about trash on my street. Well, what if it's not my street? It's still on my planet.
Yes.
And you know, there's this or that piece of trash, piece of rubbish. There's this or that social issue. There are all these things that are issues with our world, with our globally. And so, you know, what responsibility am I willing to take up with respect to that? And how can I be of service? And when we just imagine if every single one of the 7 billion of us were thinking that way, we could potentially come up with solutions to all of our issues, if only we were thinking that way.
Yeah, Dave, and I think that you know, I spent a lot of years in that nonprofit world, and always having inquiries from people about volunteering, and having a need for volunteers to help make those programs happen. And a lot of people would come to that situation, you know, claiming interest and sympathy towards whatever population we were dealing with. And often the conversations that I would have with those people is, I understand that you feel sympathetic. This may be an opportunity to actually be able to find out a bit more about what kind of issues this population actually does face. So it's not a matter of just stroking a check and making the donation. This might be an opportunity to actually engage with those people,
right,
and get a truer understanding of what kind of issues, roadblocks that they are facing.
Yes.
And what that will do is tend to take the comments of, why don't those people just go out and get a job? You know, that kind of thinking comes from a place of not engaging with people and not understanding what it's like to walk around in their shoes for a while.
Yeah, we should probably be clear, Kim, the benefits of social responsibility are not a tax write-off.
No.
I mean, yes, you can get a tax write-off for your donation to a charity, but it's nothing compared with what it's like to actually go in and give of yourself and share of your expertise and your knowledge and your wisdom and what you've gained. It's really when we do that that we really get that sense of fulfillment that can come from social responsibility.
And in saying that, we don't want to discourage anybody from actually making a donation to a nonprofit.
No, this is good. This is good. No, they can use all the help.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's about what can I do if I actually went down to the food bank or the soup kitchen or wherever it is, and many of them, of course, have volunteer training programs and various kinds of screening that you have to go through, because they don't want to create more problems by having people come into their organization. So they have to be careful about how they select individuals to actually work on the front lines with people. But tremendously rewarding, and it could be the missing thing. Instead, what we see, Kim, is we see people who play the victim role, and it is very sad and unfortunate when people are waiting around for, again, the badge that says someone should with the cross through it. It's about how can you first and foremost, how can you get yourself out of the victim role and then see what use you are to others? And it's a very healing part of the process for many different kinds of healing. And one of which, of course, is the freedom from obsessions of the mind. So the whole 12-step idea, part of that is helping others. So if you have some habit or something that you can't stop doing, when we shift our focus to helping others, then it gets us out of ourselves and switches that attention away from what we need or want to what others need.
And again, Dave, I think it's real important to, we're not talking about an either-or scenario here. We are talking about carrying both notions forward at the same time.
You don't have to sell everything. You don't have to sell everything
right.
and give everything away. And we're not talking about everyone becoming Mother Teresa or Gandhi.
No, because we do have our own needs, and it's important to be aware of those, what those are, and how we're going to go about addressing those, and taking into consideration what's going on around us during that entire time too.
Yes, it's another one of those both-and situations.
Absolutely.
I would think.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So we're kind of to the end of our time, Kim. So just how do we want to summarize social responsibility today, given what we've talked about?
Well, I think that something that I keep in my mind all the time is we live on a planet with finite resources of every kind, and so that kind of drives me. There's finite resources. I don't want to waste resources.
Right.
And that's not just from an environmental point of view. It's also from a personal point of view. I have some skills and capacities that could contribute to my community. And it's important to contribute those resources to keep the planet humming along. So that's the picture that I carry around in my mind as kind of a guideline for what little choices I'm making every moment of every day.
Right. And we live in this incredible country, which is all about human rights, but we don't want to forget about our responsibilities. What is our responsibility to this society that we live in? How can I make it better? And I think that that's part of social responsibility, is that just shift in thinking away from our singular focus on number one to, okay, so I've been fortunate enough, I've had the privilege, I've had the benefit of gaining this knowledge, this expertise. How is that going to benefit others? And I think if we've gotten that point across in this half-hour conversation, I think that might be a good place to end. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so, Dave. And again, tell us your stories about how social responsibility or any one of the other competencies is unfolding in your life. What are you experiencing out there?
Yes.
So you can keep in touch with us at david@eitrainingcompany.com
or Kim@eitrainingcompany.com, and Twitter your Twitter handle again
EQ
is
to lead.
EQ with the number 2 and the word lead. And I am David R. Corey. So tweet us. Come take a look at our Facebook page. Just look up the Emotional Intelligence Training Company, and you'll find us. And of course, you can always find our YouTube videos online by going through our website, which is eitrainingcompany.com. Thanks for dropping in and having a listen to us today. And we hope to see you online again in the near future. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.